Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of...
Back again.
Yeah, of Hitting the Wall podcast. Shirley, hello, how are you?
Hi, yeah, good, thanks.
We're back, it's good. I've had an interesting week.
Go on.
Yeah, I got mugged.
Did you?
Sort of.
Okay. Explain.
I will. But before that, I'm going to leave that one hanging for a moment, and I will come back to it. We were talking off air with producer Steve about his business here, the studio that he's got, and which is based in Uxbridge, and he's really looked after us. It's great, and we ended up talking about selling a little bit, and he was telling us about this couple at a market stall, a traditional market just round the corner, and they make jams and chutneys and I don't know if he said biscuits, but I think you need biscuits for chutneys. I assume crackers, maybe, yeah, that sort of thing. And he was saying that he really wants to video the woman who does does the stall with, I presume, her husband. I don't know anything about it. I'm sort of saying this secondhand because she always comes around the stall and will almost accost people and say to them, "Oh, I'm really proud of this one," and she engages in conversation. Yeah. With them, and I presume then makes sales. And she's, I think the phrase was said, she's a natural born saleswoman. And I actually think everybody is a natural salesperson. As a child, as a baby, you are constantly selling yourself for attention. You start out by crying for attention, literally. And then you go on and you sell to your parents and, I want to go out tonight. Well, you can't. Well, why can't I go out tonight? I'll be back by 10. Oh, okay, as long as you're back by 10. Hang on a minute, you're not going out in that dress. Yes, I am, because you said I could, and you didn't say anything about it. And you learn to kind of manipulate, and that's what some people would say selling is. And it just got me thinking a little bit about this woman who maybe in her 70s who's been running a market stall all her life. And producer Steve said something really, I thought, very, very relevant, is that every business owner should go out and run a market stall before running a business, and they do it on The Apprentice, don't they? It's one of the key things is how much money can you make on a market stall type situation. I just wondered what you've been in sales for a long time, and I just wondered what your thoughts on, not necessarily that specifically, but this whole you said something very interesting around most business owners don't get into business to sell. Yeah. Do you want to just kind of... Yeah. And then I'll tell you about being mugged.
All right, blackmail. I see an awful lot of business owners who start their business because they don't usually start as self-employed straight out of school or college. They usually have worked in an employed position. And typically they get made redundant or they hate their job and they've left for whatever reason. But if it's something the thing they actually enjoy doing, then often what happens in terms of self-employment is they say, I could do that better. I'm going to set up on my own because I could do what it is better and I won't have the overhead of my boss who I hate. Yeah. And they get into their business to do the thing that they're doing. Doesn't matter what it is, but that thing. And very quickly, they find out that that's only a tiny part of running a business. And they have to basically undertake a crash course in what it's like to actually run a business. Because doing the thing, whether it is, selling a product, selling a service, operating a camera, whatever that thing is, selling jam is, or making the jam, making things. A lot of people get into it because they like craft. So people have told them that they're really good at knitting jumpers or crocheting little soft toys, whatever it is. They start their business because they're like, I'm going to sell these. People have said they're good enough. They, friends and family have said, oh, I'll buy one off you. And they start knitting frantically, or they start crafting. They start doing that thing. And then they find out that there's so much that goes on in terms of running a business, and they get stuck because they don't know how to do any of that stuff because they've never had to in the past. When they were in an employed position, they had a finance team who sorted out invoices and chasing payments, and they had probably a customer service team who dealt with incoming calls.
Or account management.
Or account managers.
Yeah.
They might have had an operations team, depending on what the business was.
Fulfillment, marketing. Yeah.
It could be picking and posting. Who knows, It could be sales pipeline in terms of, either wholesale customers or in terms of suppliers. And so the only thing they've done when they were employed is make that widget.
Yep.
They're good at making widgets, whatever the widget is, whether it's a product or a service. That's what they do. They haven't had to do sales, marketing, customer service, HR, supply chain, whatever. And now that they're on their own and they've got their business, now they have to learn all of that stuff. Well, how do you learn that stuff?
And it's really hard, isn't it? And I think you're right. You've kind of jumped on the challenge that I think many people face. We were talking off air about a client that we have in the business who probably 7 years ago had her business composed of her, half a person, and maybe half a dozen people meeting in the pub once a month, and it's now a global business. And the reason that it's scaled so effectively is because she's removed herself from all the things that she is not very good at.
Yep.
And the thing that she's really, really good at, ironically, is selling. So she has focused on doing that one thing as often as possible and as well as possible. Just make sales. Don't worry about looking after the customers. Someone else will do that. Don't worry about finance. Somebody else will do that. Don't even worry about marketing the business. Even though she's a brilliant marketer, she's still a better salesperson than she is marketer, to get somebody else to do the marketing. Don't worry about writing copy. Even though she's really, really good at writing copy, get somebody else to write the copy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's been a revelation for her. But she has got a skill, selling, that I believe, no, that's unfair. I see most certainly of our clients and the people we talk to and outside of that client base that they don't have, which is that ability to, it's not an ability to sell, it's almost a willingness or a fear of sales. And I talk to people about this a lot, and I think there's lots of reasons. This fear of selling, I think often there's two camps. There's those who just are put off by the term sales, I guess, that it's a bit of a dirty word. It has, connotations of watches inside of a long brown coat in the pub, or second-hand car salesman type thing. And I think the world has moved on.
Door knockers.
Yeah, and door knockers, yeah, very, very much so. There was a Facebook post in my area just last week about, door knockers are out again, but keep away because they're going to... And often they're just young lads trying to make good. But they're being tarred with this opinion. They've been given an anti-superhero cape that society's wrapped around them, I guess. So there's that one side, and then the other side is that fear of rejection. That if I ask, somebody might say no.
Yeah.
So here's a plan. If I never ask anybody, nobody can reject me.
And we talked about that a few weeks ago, didn't we? About rejection,
yes,
sensitivity, and
exactly,
and things.
And if I don't get rejected, then I'm all right.
But if you never ask, nobody ever says yes either.
Correct. So how, given that I think most people can sell, and then we learn how not to sell as we grow, most people, and we can only ever generalize here, okay?
Yeah.
As I said earlier, as babies, we were born sales babies. We become very good at selling ourselves as children because you're constantly having to make sure you get fed. You're constantly having to make sure that you get the things that you want to do, that you want. And we're not subtle about it as children.
No.
We just go out and ask, right? Mummy, can I have an ice cream? No, go and ask your dad. Daddy, can I have an ice cream? No, go and ask your mum.
But Mum said yes.
Mum said yes. Oh, all right then. So you get caught into those little traps.
Yeah.
But you don't know. And I've always thought about, I wonder if I was working with a business with like 2 people in it and they were prospects, if I went to one and said, do you want to come and work with me? And they said no, whether they go, well, I'll check with my husband, and I'll go, well, I've already spoken to your husband and he said yes, so where do you want to sign, kind of thing. But you I think what I'm trying to get to is how do we begin to get people comfortable with sales?
So I'll tell you what I did, because I have worked in sales in the past. I used to do sales and account management in telco and you know, some quite big sales, and that can be quite intimidating. And I came out of it because I didn't like it, because I got frightened by the whole sales thing. And then I set up my own business, and guess what? I had to sell. So here's how I rationalised it for myself. I stopped trying to sell, and I started trying to help people.
Yeah.
And my aim was not to sell them ice skating clothing. My aim was to help them figure out what it is that they wanted. And if they liked it and they bought it, great. And if they didn't, okay. And that's all I did. And I do the same thing now when I'm, you know, now working freelance basis. And if I talk to a new customer, and I had one last week who rang, actually I think it was the week before, but emailed me in a bit of a panic saying, I've been put in contact with you by so-and-so, didn't even recognise who it was. I don't know who this person who recommended me is.
Probably me.
And I didn't recognise the name. Needs some help. When can you know, I need it now. I've got this problem and I need it now. And I said, well, I haven't got a space until the 11th of April. You know, if you want it, I'm available on the 11th of April. And they said, oh, but I need it sooner. I'm like, okay, well, I can recommend some people that you can ask if they're free. But if you want me, I'm not available until the 11th of April. I gave them a few pointers. You know, I tried to help them. I was like, you know, have a think about this, look at this app, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm not mean, but I'm just, you know, I'm trying. This comes back to what we were saying a few weeks ago about my priority is my health. Yeah. I've got other projects and clients that I'm working with. I don't want to overbook myself, because not only does that affect me, but I also can't give the best to my clients either. So I was trying to be quite firm and say, no, I am fully booked until the 11th. That's when I've next got space. And he said, okay, thank you. You know, he went away and had a look at the stuff that I gave him. A week later, last week, I got another email saying, I've done the things you suggested. I'm still having problems. Are you still available on the 11th? Yes, I am. Here's my rates. Here's, you know, and because I'm not desperate for the sale, because I've got plenty of other stuff that I'm doing, and I also know that I'm going to be off for a little bit, so I'm trying to not wind things up. Really, I'm trying to finish things off,
tick things along.
Yeah. And so, you know, my attitude was, great if I get it, I'm not bothered if I don't, right? So I was like, okay, fine. Well, if you want me, it's going to be this much. It's a minimum of 2 hours, because I'm not getting out of bed for 1 hour of, you know, helping. That sounds awful. It's not that I don't want to help. It's just, you know, it's got to be worth my while too. And I'm going to bill you in advance, because I want to make sure that I get paid. And this is quite alien to me. This is quite a big step for me. In the past, I've been like, oh yeah, of course I can help you. Anything you need. When do you want me? And he said yes. And I'm meeting him virtually meeting him on the 11th. But the point being is that I'm, in a perverse way, ending up getting more business by trying not to sell to people. I'm trying to help them. And I'm kind of, the way that I'm wording it is just, you know, I can help you if you want help. Here's what I can do. I'll give you some tips, point you in the right direction. Maybe that will be enough for you. But if you want me, this is how much I charge. This is when I'm available. And it's okay if you don't want to sign up to that. That's okay. And it takes the pressure off me, because I'm not feeling like I'm desperate to win this business and I've got to present myself and do a hard sell or anything like that. But it also takes the pressure off them. And they have I believe they have a different perception about me, because they don't feel me doing this hard sell. What they hear or see, if it's an email, is me trying to help them. And their perception then becomes, I want to work with this person, or I'll wait for this person in this instance. because she's tried to help me. She's given me some pointers, told me a couple of things to try, offered to put me in contact with other people if that, if the timescale doesn't work. There's less pressure on them too, so it makes it easier for them to say yes. And that's kind of where I've gone with it. That's may not be the right thing to do, but that's what I've done, and that's taken pressure off me, which makes me feel less stressed.
I think you're right, it may not be the way to do things, but it massively resonates with me. And I think, so I've got a client I've been working with for several months, and how do I say this kindly? They are close. I wouldn't say they're desperate, but they are keen to make sales, very keen to make sales. And I think the trouble is that comes across in all their messaging.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with one of them about 3 weeks ago. Long conversation, a couple of hours on the phone. It was only meant to be a 2-minute chat, as these things normally are. And we got onto this principle of sales and how do we get them and stuff like that. And I said, the trouble is, what's happening at the moment is you are doing the equivalent of walking up to a girl in a bar, and saying, shall we get married?
Yeah.
And you've never met her before in your life. Now, there might be some people out there
who are crazy enough
married
to say
at
first sight.
Yeah. But on the whole, what you need to do is build a relationship. Mm-hmm. And you might go up to her, and it's been a long time since I've done this. All right, but you might,
don't take a relation advice from Ash.
From Ash, because no, I do all right. Thank you very much. But it's been a while since I walked up to a girl in bar. And but you want to walk up to her, and if you think back to your youth, I said to him, what would you do? Well, I'd walk up to her and say hello. Yeah, that's a really good start. That's a really good start. And then what would happen? I'd get into a conversation. I said, yeah. Then you might buy her a drink. And you may or may not ask for her number and ask if you can follow up by contacting her again. You get permission. And then if you were really smart, you actually would do what you said you were going to do and follow up, because most people don't. Same thing happens in business, doesn't it? So then you'd follow up. You might ask her out for a date, and you'd go for a nice date, and you might get a peck in the cheek in the end. And I was starting to show my age here, because I think things have moved on a little bit now, especially according to my daughter. But there you go. So anyway, but there is this process that you go. There's a courting process that you go through. I'm really showing my age now using that word, but fundamentally it's correct. Yeah. There is a set of steps, that we all kind of socially understand that you need to manage to develop a relationship. Now, whether that's a relationship with a prospective new wife, husband, partner, okay, or so I've not spoken about this publicly, but you know that we put the dog to sleep, about a month ago, and anyone who knows me knows how close we were to him, and it was a really, really difficult decision. And we'd got to know some people on the dog walk, and there was one couple especially who had a dog called Marley, and they unfortunately they had to put Marley down about 4 weeks before we put Rodney down. But we hadn't really got to know them, but we saw them every morning on the dog. And when there was always a little stop for a couple of minutes, and the dogs would say hello and have a little sniff, and because Marley was a girl, Rodney would do his whole hello thing, because it was just building a relationship with her, and we would chat a little bit, and it turns out that she's the receptionist at the local physio clinic, and our neighbours go to that clinic, and there was a bit of a connection there, and she said, well, you've got a problem with your neck, and why don't you come down to Kay? And so we started going there. So we've established this relationship, and when they'd once walked past our house with the dog, and saw us outside in the garden, so they knew where we lived. Not stalking, but there's a reason for doing this. And when we came back from the vets, about 3 days later, there was some post, and there was a card with no stamp on it and just our name on it, and it was a card from them, a sympathy card from them. So they'd come up to the house and put this note in, and in the note it said, it'd be lovely if the two of you wanted to pop round one Sunday evening and have a drink in the garden, kind of thing. And we just thought, well, we thought about doing that. That's really nice. So we WhatsApped them and said, that sounds really good. Let's wait for it to be a little bit warmer maybe. But we've gone from complete strangers who've got the dogs in common to having this sort of verbal relationship to moving to we're going to go and sit in their garden and have a few drinks and probably share dog stories. And we've got that connection. But we're building a relationship and it's taken months. Months. Probably years, in fact, if you think about it. Because we've been walking the dog for 2 years since the beginning of lockdown. Now, coming back to my client, he's trying to jump in bed with clients and get married to them and drag them to the altar. Yeah. And he doesn't even know their names. Yeah. You know, and I think it's a really, really, and as I was telling this to him, you know, he was laughing his head off because he could see exactly
where you were going
where
with
I was
it,
going with it and all the rest of it. And I think it's a really, really important and relevant point that you have to go on a journey with your customers. There's a great book out there written by a guy called Daniel Priestley, The Key Person of Influence. And Daniel Priestley does a lot of really good things. And one of the things he talks about is this principle of, it's in my head because I got an email from him this morning, 1174. And it's, can you create, I think it's 7114 actually, do you have 7 hours of content that people can immerse themselves in around your product or service? Is it on 11 different bits of material, if you like, and on 4 different platforms? So that might be listen, watch, read. Okay. And so I kind of look at this as, could somebody sit down from 9 to 5, have an hour for lunch and just go through my stuff? And the answer is yes. Because you know what? People will. They may not do 7 hours back to back with a couple of, you know, Marmite sandwiches for lunch. But if you're buying a high-end product especially, you will research. You know, when I got my car, I didn't just go, I'll have that one. I watched YouTube channels, I got the brochure, I went in, I sat in the car, we test drove it. I immersed myself in that product. Anyone who's listening to this with a reasonably high-end product, and I'd say £1,000 plus, people are immersing themselves. So you need to be creating an environment where people can build a relationship with your service on their terms in their time. And that might be no different to a girl checking you out on Facebook or speaking to your mates to see that you're not a serial killer or whatever, okay? You've got to, you know, they might even drive past your place of work to see what you do, all that sort of stuff. I don't know if that happens anymore. But you've got to give people the opportunity to build a relationship with you, even if you're not there. And just going straight in for the jugular and asking for the sale, I mean, it can work. You can brutally go down, you know, that's door knocking, isn't it? You know, do you want to buy J-cloth? You know, you knock on 100 doors, 10 people will buy J-cloth, that's fine. But it's brutal. And I know that most of the people that listen to this podcast have got higher end service product, you know, or some retail stuff. And even if it is a retail business, your website needs to be about the why and the benefits, and that's all relationship building, isn't it? If people are not ready to buy from you now, then you need to be communicating with them on a regular basis. That involves social media or email, you know, for example. You need to go and do talks if you're any way consultative, that sort of stuff, so people get to know you. But it's a real skill. And I don't think everybody has it, but we've all had it. We've all had it at some point in our lives, this ability to generate. I mean, kids are brilliant at building relationships with each other and with adults. Yeah. Because they know that if they build a relationship with that adult, it's the easiest way to get something out of them, isn't it? Yeah. They're so good at it. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a rant there, but not a rant, but I just think it's really interesting, this principle of build the relationship and then don't even ask to get married, you know, just ask for the date first of all. It's a slower process than perhaps we think. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Is that...
I think you're right, and I think in a roundabout way that's kind of what I was describing that I've done with this new prospective client is I'm not going straight in there going, the first email I've had from him saying, this is my problem, could you help me out? How do I do X, Y, and Z? And I've gone back and said, my rates are this, available time, book now. That's not what I've said. What I've said is, I can help you. I'm fully booked until, if you want to wait, that's fine. If you don't, I can help you in some other ways. And in the meantime, regardless of whether you use me or not, and this takes the pressure off, is here's some pointers. Here's some places you can start. Look at this, try this.
You were helpful.
I was helpful.
Useful, yeah.
And, that has started to build the relationship, because I've started by saying, I'm going to help you. Whether you buy from me or not, I'm going to help you. I haven't gone straight in there and said, buy now, get married now. I've gone in there and said, hey, let's chat. Let's have a conversation, and maybe it's right for you and maybe it's not. And that's okay either way.
So going back to my analogy, you were playing hard to get.
I don't see it like that.
He might have.
He might have. And if he's interpreted it that way, then that's okay.
But that's compelling anyway, in its own way.
Yeah,
because
done right. Yeah.
Done right, it is very, very compelling, because what you're basically doing is like takeaway selling.
Yeah.
You're saying, I'm here, but I'm going to take it away from you.
Yeah.
That's playing hard to get. Well, it was when I was 15 anyway. Because that just makes somebody want it more.
Yeah, I think for me it's more of a I don't need you. It's nice if I get that sale, great, but it's not thousands, it's, a couple of hours of my time, it's not a big deal. Maybe it'll lead to more, who knows?
Who knows?
You don't know, and that's where that relationship building, I don't want to just say, get lost, I haven't got time for you.
But that 2 hours is the equivalent of
a date.
Isn't
Exactly.
it?
And maybe it'll lead to more, and maybe it won't. And that's okay either way. But it takes, my whole thing is just take the pressure off. Take the pressure away and stop going, hard sell, do you want to get married? And start going, let's have a conversation. How do we have a chat? Can I help you? And maybe that's all it will ever be. It will only ever be a first date, and that's okay.
That's
and maybe it will lead to a massive long, multi-year relationship where we get married at the end, and that's okay too.
But we've all had dates where it's not worked out, but then they've introduced us to their friend, and it has.
Exactly. But the worst thing about dating is when someone comes across as super desperate. Do you want to go on a date? Can we go now? Do you want to go tomorrow? Why not? Do you want to get married next week?
What's wrong with me?
Yeah, and people's instant reaction to that is, whoa, this guy's weird. This person is like super desperate. And if they're that desperate, and other people don't want them, there's going to be something wrong with them because nobody else wants them.
Yeah.
Subtly without really thinking that, I haven't planned it out like this, but subtly what I'm saying is, I'm in demand. Other people want me, and the first available slot that I've got to help you is not for 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I'm all right with that.
And I'm okay with that. And if you can't wait for that long, that's okay by me, because I have enough other work going on.
Yeah. Do you think you could play that line if you didn't have enough work going on?
I have, and it was a really big step.
Because that's the thing I wanted to get out of this for people listening.
Yes.
There's a little game that you need to
I'll
play
tell
with
you a
yourself.
story, because I don't think I've actually talked to you or anyone else about it. But in end of January, having been super busy for quite a few months, to the point where I'd had a VA doing overflow work for me. At the end of January, it became apparent that some other stuff that I thought was going to pick back up again hadn't. And I actually said to my VA, I'm going to have to take the stuff that you're doing back off you, because I can't justify it. It's not a big deal, but I just, I can't justify paying you to do it when I've got time to do it myself. And, that was okay. But I kind of made a decision that I wasn't going to start going out to existing past or prospective clients and start going, have you got any work for me? Have you got any work for me? Because that sounds too desperate. It does take a bit of faith to kind of go, whatever will be, will be. And it helps to have, it's difficult to do that if you're living month to month,
sure.
Right? I have a little bit of buffer. So I knew that I could go for, 3 months and not have huge amount of business. So I made a decision I was going to rein in what I could, because you just want to make sure that you're not blowing money or
being
sales frivolously.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to go out there and go, hey, everybody, I'm desperate. And it amused me. It still amuses me now. But within a week of me pulling this back from my VA, the project that I've just spent 3 back-to-back weeks on came off and started going absolutely crazy. And because I wasn't sure exactly where it was going, I decided to not give the stuff back to the VA. I've kept it. But I'm now at a point where I'm like, I have to give her this work back because I'm getting busy again. And also I know I'm going to be off for a couple of months as well. So I want to make sure that those things are ticking over. But what I didn't want to do was put blood in the water of Shirley's desperate for some work. Yeah. Because I think people feel that. And as soon as you start saying, I'm desperate, what work have you got for me? It creates not only a feeling, but this atmosphere of desperation. And people start going, what's going on? Yeah. Why do they need this so badly? And it perpetuates exactly what you don't want to happen. So I it does take bravery, and I did really struggle with it, I'm not going to lie. But to be brave enough to go, I'll pull it back, but what will be will be. I've got a buffer to leave it for a couple of months before I need to start doing anything super proactive, and it's turned around. It just goes in. I know that my business goes in waves, right? So that's why I have a buffer. Sometimes I'm crazy busy, and sometimes I'm not, and I try and take the ups and the downs together. That's just the way it works. But
it's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting.
It takes a bit of bravery to go, I'm not going to go out there and be desperate.
It's a really good message. It's a really, really, really good message. Selling without selling, fundamentally.
Be helpful.
So do you want to, we covered quite a bit today around...
I knew you were going to ask me to summarise. I would just say, try and help, try not to sell. Because the sales will come from being helpful.
And don't ask for marriage on the first.
Don't ask for marriage on the first date.
Yeah, I think that's
or the first time you meet somebody. Just try and help them. Have a conversation.
Do you want to hear about my mugging?
Yes, I'd forgotten about that. But tell us how
everybody's waiting for the mugging. No, I'm sure they're not.
Tell us about the
mugging.
Do
it next week if you want.
No, tell us now.
Do it in 2 parts and half.
God, you're killing me.
So it's actually not that exciting. But so I was in London last Friday, and jumped on the tube to go and see a client in the afternoon. Got out at Temple Station. Haven't been there for years. It was quite cool. It was quite fun. Got out at Temple Station. Little bit of a hurry. It's a lovely spring day. Jeans, t-shirt, rucksack on. Kind of strolling along. And as I walk out the station, I literally this guy kind of just steps right out in front of me and goes, "Hey man, can I borrow you for a minute?" And he's got a clipboard. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, I'm really sorry, and I know you hear this all the time, but I am properly busy. And he said, I literally just need 10, 15, 30 seconds. Won't be much longer than that. And then he said, but it might be, but can I at least have the 10, 15 seconds? And I'm, okay, go on. And so he was like, look, I'm working with a charity that helps educate youngsters and takes them off the streets who have been involved in knife crime. And I went, amazing. I'm a massive QPR fan. We renamed our stadium Kind Prince Foundation Stadium after a lad who got stabbed and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm quite involved in that anyway. I'm not, but, I support it in the way that I can through the club. It's not something I work with. And he was like, oh, brilliant, fist bump, big smile on his face. And he's like, well, then you'll understand how important it is. And we run these workshops, and just 25 quid will put a kid through, workshop. And I was one of these kids who did these workshops, and now I'm helping promote it. And, I was in a really bad place, and, where are you from? And I said, oh, I was from Shepherd's Bush. And he's like, oh, I understand the West London, I'm from Hackney. And straight away, but we're both Londoners, aren't we? And straight away he's found common ground. He's chatting to me. He's got that little bit of a fist bump, and I'm like, okay, look, it's a great cause. I'll give you, what are the options? He said, well, you could do 1 person, 2 people, or 4 people. So that's 25 quid, 50 quid, or 100 quid. But he put it 1 person in a workshop, 2 people in a workshop, or 4 people in a workshop. 2 people in a workshop's fine, 50 quid. So he gets the card machine out, and so I go to get my phone, and he said, right, before you do that, because my mum always said to me, if you don't ask, you don't get. Right. could you really help me out? Because I'm now going to be 50 quid away from my target. And you look like the kind of guy who could cover that 50 quid and not worry about it.
Oh, God.
And I went, all right then, here's 100 quid. So I pinged it across and he was like, thank you so much, man. Big hug, amazing, gave me a little sticker. Okay. And I walked off. And I just walked off feeling really pleased about the fact that I'd been mugged. Because he was brilliant.
Yeah.
I hadn't really been mugged. But and I said to him as part of it, I said, look, I feel like I'm being mugged here and you're not even using a knife. He was like, yeah, I like that. But he was so good at developing a relationship with me very, very quickly. And he did, in fairness, given everything we talked about, he asked me to marry him on the first day. But he did it brilliantly. You know,
but in a way,
I still think about that.
He did ask you to marry in the first date, but in a way, he actually took you through all the steps, just in a really condensed format. He didn't. The first thing he said to you wasn't, "Do you want to sponsor 4 kids?"
No.
He took you through the steps and ended up there. It's just that it happened within 10 minutes rather than 10 months.
And he was very open. He was very honest. He was very transparent. He, as I say, he connected, found a way to connect with me, and I think that was the really important thing. That, you know, okay, I'm a West Londoner, he's a South Londoner, but we're both from London. Yeah, we are, you know. And he jumped on the fact that he knew Kind Prince Foundation and that they were, you know, they're related subjects, both about knife crime, but they're just dealing with it in different ways. And you know, he could tell that I'd, you know, grown up in a part of the world that sees a lot of this stuff, and that he understood that it was important to me. You could see that I spoke his language, that, you know, there was enough there for him to just grab hold of it and use it to take it to the next step.
Listens, though.
And listened really, really well. Great kid, you know. Really, I mean, I'd have him in the business in a heartbeat because he just sells snow to the Eskimos. He was so good. But actually, he's doing something he's very passionate about. And I think that helps on the sales side.
Absolutely.
He really believes in what they're doing because he's been a product of it. You know, both the bad and now the good. And that's really cool.
And that's a lesson in itself, is you have to sell stuff that you believe in.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing. Good stuff.
I think we could go on for another half an hour.
We could go on for ages on this one, I think. Sales is such an emotive subject, isn't it?
Yes.
But one we come across all the time. We'll cut it there.
Yep.
As always, guys, if you have your own sales stories, want help maybe looking at your sales process, the way you're building relationships, you know, have you been slapped around the face for asking someone to get married on the first time you meet them? We'd love to know. You know how to reach out and find us. Hello at the Business Clubhouse.
.co.uk.
.co.uk. Till next week.
Yep, I'll see you then.
Will do.